It's recording.
Hello. Here we are.
Here we are.
Yes. Wow, that's
that.
really weird looking. Okay, better.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, I have it's called a pop filter in front of my mic because I'm using a fancy condenser mic, which is more of a vocal mic, and Celine is actually using a
podcast mic.
Yeah, more of a podcast mic. For those audio nerds, I'm using a Rode NTK1.
Oh.
Which is going through a UAD preamp into a Neve 1073 virtual plugin using their Unison technology.
Wow. This is going to be a fun episode, huh?
Cue the music. And Celine is using an SM7B or SMB7. I always get dyslexic there, but
whatever. I don't know if it's nice. It's a nice time.
Yeah. So
yeah, just go.
Wait.
Oh, what?
Welcome to
another episode of As
Woo
As
You Want.
Yes.
With
Celine
and Jeremiah.
Hi,
we're back. And the siren's excited. Everyone's excited. Today we want to talk about bodies.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about bodies.
It's just kind of naturally happening. So Celine and I usually try and think of what we want to talk about beforehand, just so we have like a general idea. But we keep things open.
Right. We leave room for exploring.
Yeah.
For the conversation to unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I pulled my back a little bit yesterday morning.
Yes.
While running, and then this morning I pulled another part of my back or like my shoulder. So like that was the thing. As I've been getting more woo-woo and learning more about this stuff and learning more about like how everything physical is actually just consciousness.
Yes.
How does that relate? You know, so there's, and maybe we can even talk about chakras with this stuff too, because the interchange of energy, there's so many different ways your body can be affected by energies, whether it's, you know, other people courting you or something subconscious that's happening.
Right.
So like, I kind of, instead of me being like, well, I was like, okay, obviously I didn't drink enough water. Maybe I should have stretched a little more.
Sure.
But the other thing that came to me was like, what's really going on?
So, interesting segue to my esoteric acupuncture book, which relates everything to your different kind of astral planes. You have...
Can you, like,
yes.
Give a title of that book just so if people are interested?
I can definitely give the title of that book. It's called Esoteric Acupuncture, Gateway to Expanded Healing by Miko Sankei. There's like... This is volume 1. I think there's 3 volumes. But... So it talks about how most of our illness and disease starts in our astral plane. So that's like the third plane outside of our body. We have the physical body. Then you have your etheric, which is like a wetsuit. And then outside of that, you have your astral. Then you have your mental, and then causal, and then spiritual. So I think that's 7 of them. And most illness, even in like woo-woo stuff like Abraham and Hicks, Bashar, starts with the mental aspect and then becomes physical. So it's all very transmutable through that kind of realm. So yeah, but like having like a pulled muscle could also just be a pulled muscle, but usually it's like a stress manifesting in the body.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Celine and I were talking a little bit beforehand, and I was mentioning how this isn't the first time I pulled my back, particularly before a trip. I'm actually going to LA next week, and it happened once before, also going out west a few years ago, and then another thing happened where I actually fainted before I went to Europe. So it was just like, for me, I am always looking for connections. That's how like my brain works. And so I was like, what does this mean? And just thinking about it in terms of like symbolic significance and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I could go kind of more deeper into how meridians and acupuncture and different organs hold different energetic vibrations, but it could be too complicated.
Yeah.
But like historically in Chinese medicine and even in like this esoteric book, the energy of your liver, not the actual organ, but kind of like the energetics of what it does in the body, it's responsible for anger, frustration on the emotion scale. And then physically, it's like the master of tendons and muscles. So if someone's really anxious and irritated or stressed out, it will usually manifest in the body physically as like muscle pain. And so in acupuncture, you treat the liver. That's just a small insight into like a very vast topic of what that means.
That was so great.
Yeah. So like you
So
being like
enlightening, yeah.
stressed, you're like, oh, like I'm going away. But you're like aware enough to be like, actually, what's the root of it? Mm-hmm. The root is probably like your liver energy is getting a little bit more anxious and stagnant, and it's going to just like manifest physically in an area of your body. Mm. And so with acupuncture, you would go in and release that kind of local area and then work on the energetic channel of the liver to move that. So everything is related to the emotions, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I want to go really deep into that, but I'm wondering if we should just pull back a little bit.
Yeah, it's very broad.
Where you were, I know you're only like somewhere into
very
that
surface.
Volume 1 of Volume 3 books.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know.
But, there is, I know, for those who are familiar, there's a book called An Autobiography of a Yogi, which is by Paramahansa Yogananda. Mm-hmm. And
it's a great book.
Yeah, really amazing. And he is basically an autobiography about a yogi. This guy, was a teacher in the early 20th century. Mm-hmm. I think he passed away in the early 1950s. There's some construction going out. Apologies for all our listeners out there.
It's weird. I can't really hear it through the mic.
Oh, okay. It's subtle. It's
okay.
In and out. But he talks about a lot of different things, but one thing he talks about is how you have kind of what you're saying, but a little less delineated, how you have your body, you have your astral self, and then, well, he was talking more about planes. So he's talking about like the material plane, the astral plane, and then the causal plane.
Right. So that's 3 of them.
Yeah. But what I find so fascinating with all of these woo-woo books that are like so all over the place in terms of like the modalities, the people, whatever, everything connects. Like I haven't read anything that's like literally contradicted something else.
Yeah, it's true.
It's just mutually reinforcing this picture.
It's just like said a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is awesome.
Yeah.
There's a dog.
There's a dog.
Well, I know. The body is a really complex thing. And there's so much science behind. I feel like there's more science that's becoming a little bit more woo-woo.
Finally.
Don't you think so?
Yeah. Yes, the body is... I think the thing... just kind of like what we were talking about with the first episode, where when you start to stop identifying with just your body or just your mind, and you start broadening kind of the conception of who you are and what you're really made out of
Right.
on an energetic level, it really starts to crack open things.
Yeah. It's almost overwhelming, though.
It is.
I find it pretty overwhelming because all the lines are blurred.
Yes.
You know, like we're no longer just this one stagnant little model of a person.
Right. Well, separation is illusion, right? Like that's the whole thing. Like we're in this material world and we think like, you know, I'm separate from you, or
Right.
this mic is separate from me, or whatever. And then when those lines start to blur and you realize, no, we're actually all energy.
Just like different forms of it.
Yeah.
Or like particle conglomerations.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild. But I feel like that's what I want to incorporate more into my like meditation daily practice, is like also being very aware of my body. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
being like sending it like health and like light and like oxygenating my blood vessels, because I don't know, like I went to the gym and like my knee hurt when I was running. I was like, I'm 35. This sucks.
Yeah.
You know, but I think it's something that I didn't really think about before that I want to more now. I mean, do you think about that when you meditate? Or you mainly think about, because I feel like I usually just think of like centering and being present, but not my physicality.
Yeah, I do, and you know, I just finished. I gave you back that Seth book, the nature of the individual and mass events, and I think actually I also followed an Instagram account that's all Seth quotes.
Really?
That may have been It's Seth Speaks One.
There's an Instagram
I just
for
saw
Seth?
it. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, they just
God.
started.
Oh my God.
Shout out to you, whoever you are. Thank you for spreading Seth goodness.
Wow.
I forgot what it was, but basically, you know, he talks about kind of the same thing. Just to stop thinking of yourself as like a physical, just this physical being, and start to broaden your perspective on yourself. And I totally lost my train of thought. Sending love to yourself. Yes. So I mean, that's a huge part of meditation, is being aware of your body. See, a lot of times it's funny because we'll conceive of our body. We'll like be very aware that we're in a body, but we won't literally feel it.
Right.
Like
I know.
we sometimes don't feel.
In your body.
Yeah. Because you're in the mental.
I know. Well, it's sort of like a twofold thing. Like if everything starts in the like emotional, astral, like not in your body, and then gets filtered down to create like a disease in the body, it's confusing a little bit.
Yeah.
To be present, but also like it's like foreshadowing, kind of.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
But sending love to my body is very important, and it's a pretty recent thing, and was something we had our meditation club on Sunday, and it was something I incorporated into our meditation, where I've realized personally, and I feel like a lot of people probably do this too, because the culture almost teaches you to hate yourself.
Yeah.
You're not good enough.
Right.
You don't look good enough.
Right.
And really, really starting to like love your body and accept your body and forgive yourself.
Very hard.
It becomes very powerful, you know, and like at the end of our meditation, I like asked everyone to like hug themselves, and it's almost like even just like touching yourself. Like how often do you just like touch yourself and like send good vibes to it? And I do think it I don't know. I do think it makes a difference. You know, Seth talks about, and I think I mentioned it earlier, like every cell is infused with consciousness. And so if you're able to send love into all of those different parts of you,
I mean,
it's a positive thing.
it's power.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah. Interesting.
I do want to talk about, because I know there's probably some people listening and they're like, I have a disease. You're telling me I chose this disease? And this is a huge, touchy subject that I think it can be hard for some people if they're not woo-woo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like it is a sensitive subject, and it's hard. It's a hard pill to swallow, but I think that if you start to think about it in a little different framework, it's maybe less jarring. So when I think we say, like, you have a choice, you choose your circumstances, you choose your framework, your life, like, it sounds like it's this, like, very conscious decision of waking up and, like, I'm going to have a shitty day. I'm going to get a terminal illness. I'm going to have a really bad relationship. I'm going to be broke. But I think that we mean it in the grander, outside of this physicality, third dimension, like your higher oversoul, the thing that kind of like is your main power outlet, you know, that has kind of chosen a certain circumstance, a series of events that you, as your smaller consciousness, were like, yes, I'm going to participate in this event for soul growth. And I know that sounds very woo-woo and bananas. And sure, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But the growth of the soul sometimes needs to have bad things or negative stuff happen. And from my interpretation of it, that's how I view, like, if you get a terminal illness, how you deal with the terminal illness, like what that does, what happens, how you live with it. Then when you pass on, what did that do for your, soul? How did that grow? What did you learn? Or what didn't you learn? Or what did you just choose not to do with it? I guess it does sound, it's coming from a place of, I guess, like privilege, right? To say that a little bit, maybe. Mm-hmm. I know, I'm aware of that, but I do think that I do hold that belief to be true for me personally.
Yeah, I think you said that incredibly well.
But it's hard, right?
It's hard.
Like you get cancer, you're like, cool. Yeah, I wanted to do this. And it's like, I think so.
It's also one of those things where even your concept of like the individual and having just it starts to break up the concept of the individual too, because
Right.
and it's related to time as well. I'm thinking of Shaman Durek because he talks about this in an episode where he talks about how in a past life he was one of the like Egyptian pharaohs.
Okay.
And he was like a bad dude, like ordering people to be killed, like all this stuff. And he's like, other people have also been that soul.
That particular soul?
Yeah.
Right. It's like what I was saying when I came in and told you about the 14 souls.
Right.
Yes. Anyway, right. One oversoul can have different personalities.
Right.
All part of the same kind of faucet.
Yeah. So
right?
It's like if there are people who are listening and are like, well, what about people who are poor, who are, struggling and blah, blah, blah. It's those individuals are, yes, experiencing this in this lifetime. Mm-hmm. And they're experiencing it for a number of reasons, for themselves and for us. Ooh. This is the other part where other people struggling means that it's up to us. If we are in a place of privilege, if we realize we're in a place of privilege, it's up to us to help.
Right.
It's up to us to extend our hand and say, you and I are actually one, and your pain is my pain. And I think that's one of, if not the biggest lessons for humanity, is particularly with the internet now, we are seeing firsthand, it just takes a cell phone video of something.
Right.
You're seeing firsthand the injustices around the world.
Right.
And you can no longer look away.
Right.
And that pain that you see, we all are intrinsically blessed with the ability to empathize.
Right.
And so it's up to us to love and to help and support and like lift each other up.
Right.
We're not doing this by ourselves.
Right. Well, and I also feel like on that point, the kind of like the connectedness of every single soul that is actually inhabiting the planet at the moment, like we are all one, right? We all matter. We all affect each other. And I think that, you know, having, it's sort of like that concept of yin and yang, light and dark, and that makes a whole. So there's always going to be the dark and there's always going to be the light. And I think that's like a fundamental, universal, like cosmic thing. You know, there are bad forces in the world and there are good stuff. But I do think the dichotomy of having the two of them is the way that this certain paradigm of our planet is set up. At this particular level of this particular consciousness of this particular time plane.
Yeah, it gets really nutty because when you start thinking about like quantum
And
you know,
time. But do you know what I mean? Like,
quantum
I think,
reality.
I do think that there's just like darkness in the world. And that will
clearly.
always exist. And it kind of has to.
That's an interesting
That's
thing.
a nutso thing. I know.
That's
I know,
an interesting thing, but the way that I perceive it, again, I'm going to pull from Shaman Durek here, but he talks about how, look, if you think of reality as being a quantum field with an infinite number of existences, you're going to have
Right.
really
Everything.
dark,
Yeah.
like the worst of the worst of the
Yeah.
worst, like unbelievably, you can't even conceptualize it, but you also have the lightest light of light.
Right.
So, because that, and I think all of this, by the way, the light and dark, it's the duality itself is a limited concept.
Yeah.
So, like, I think for us, you know, a lot of times when we think of like good and bad and this and that, it's a very human, like Celine, you like saying, 3-dimensional way of looking at
I
things.
love saying that.
And it's just way more broad.
Right. Because we're just in one particular time slot right here.
Yeah.
We're like a little blip.
A very small blip.
And it can get really, it can go way up, higher, elevated, or it could go down too.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I know that the saying that, you know, you've chosen your circumstances is difficult.
Well,
But, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I feel like I've come to a place now where I realize, you know, we had that whole money episode, and I really feel like, yeah, my soul chose this.
From karma, right? Is that what you were saying?
Exactly. That is
Yeah.
exactly what I was going to say. Your parabolic karma. I mean, you touched upon it, but every being who comes to this plane, there's a set curriculum for us, and
Right.
there are things that we need to learn. And I mean, you know, come on, guys. Like, I think everyone can relate to, you know, you have a bunch of bad relationships. You finally learned the lesson. You weren't valuing yourself, or you were giving too much to, and then you learn your lesson and you find someone, hopefully, who is right
you
for
feel
you,
good, yeah.
you know, or, you know, in my case, it's like I'm learning how worthy I am.
Right.
And how valuable I am, and how much the world needs me.
Right.
And you know, that not being selfish, but like, I'm pretty sure I've had, if not one, multiple past lives, which are current, by the way, because there's no time. I love doing that. But I'm pretty sure I've definitely been a nun. I think.
Have you ever had anyone tell you?
No, I've never done regression therapy, but I'd love to.
You should.
Maybe at some point. But I know that there's something deep in me for a while that I've been rooting
I
out.
could see you being a nun.
Yeah, that like I thought it was
Like
noble
pain, yeah.
and like the sacrifice and the pain and like not having
Right,
was
like
like
virtuous. Yeah.
and godly,
Right.
and like the right thing to do,
Right.
and like I felt that, you know,
Yeah.
in this lifetime, and I've had to work through that to
Yeah.
realize like God is, or love, or whatever you want to call it, the universe is infinite.
Right.
And my pain and suffering doesn't help anyone.
No. Well, I don't know.
Wait, tell me how. I want to know.
Well, because so going back to what we said earlier about like when you see injustice and sadness and suffering and how you're like, like that's
Yeah.
I think sometimes when we go through struggles and we have our pains and our suffering and then everybody sees how we evolve with it or come out of it, that is really helpful for other people. So like watching you go from this like stoic nun in this lifetime to here we are now, that's like inspo,
Yeah.
So I think that's part of like why we have shitty things happen to ourselves so that everybody around us can see and we can be a mirror and like an example, I guess, maybe of like, here's a way you could deal with this that you can turn it around, which is a really nice idea.
That's so cool.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're like an inspo nun.
Thank you. And thank you.
You're welcome. But you should get you should do some past life stuff.
Yeah.
If you already know it, though, I guess it's...
No. There's a few that I'm pretty sure. I'm not pretty sure. I just feel like I know it,
Yeah.
Just one of those things where it's like, it's almost like something that just replays in your head. It could be a scene. It could be a feeling.
Really?
I don't know.
You have that? I wish I'd had that more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think particularly as you meditate.
Yeah, maybe that's what's opening that little vortex for you.
Yeah. Meditation is definitely a key.
Tool.
Yeah, a tool.
Yeah.
Into the higher selves. Do you want to talk a little bit about, because you like briefly mentioned it, the 12 souls? I know you're still just reading it.
Yes.
But...
So from my preliminary knowledge, there's sort of this level of souls. So we start at the highest, which is like a spark from the divine, which is called the monad. That's number 1. Out of the monad sparks these oversouls. So these kind of super souls. Out of a super soul, that one oversoul will spark 12 distinct personalities. All of those personalities are based on different circumstances that are helpful for the oversoul to go through to evolve to become more of the monad.
Got you.
Right?
Yeah.
And then there was this whole thing that the 12 different personalities aren't always incarnate at the same time.
Uh-huh.
And don't really necessarily meet. And what I think that is from that esoteric book relating to Seth, I think that those 12 personalities are a soul group.
Oh.
And so you have soul groups that can be incarnate at the same time on Earth or not.
Right.
And I think from Seth, I think a lot of times some of your soul group is your family.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's just a really cool concept.
Yeah. Yeah, he talks about that, how,
right?
Soul groups will incarnate again and again together. So that's why, when there are times where you meet someone and you're just like, I feel like I know this person.
Forever.
It's probably because you did.
Yeah, you're part of the same soul group.
Yeah.
But 12 doesn't seem like that many for one soul group. So I don't know. That's from this esoteric book.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I don't know. It seems tiny.
The person who wrote it, where are they getting their information from?
It's a really good question. I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering.
I know. I don't know how I knew about this book in the beginning anyway.
Yeah.
It's funny, I first got it like 8 years ago, and then I lost it. And then I just re-got it back.
You're ready to read it.
Yeah, I'm ready. It's really complicated.
Yeah.
It's real heady. It's fucking heady as hell. Yeah. So that's like soul groups, which resonates with me.
Yeah. I definitely feel like there's certain people in my life who I'm like, yeah, lived with you. Definitely we've like done this.
We've done this a lot.
And then there are other people where I'm like, I don't know who the heck you are.
I'm not into it.
Yeah.
It's funny when you meet people and you're like, You know what I mean? Or do you not have that? I have that sometimes. I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, there's so many aspects that can
Right.
cause that. Do you want to just talk a little bit more about, like, chi?
Prana,
Prana? Sure.
life
Like,
force.
yeah.
Yeah, what do you want to talk about? See, I feel like what's happening is, like, because I work in this modality, like with acupuncture,
Yeah.
like chi, chakras, how stuff manifests in the body, like, that's all I do.
Yeah.
That's my job.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to talk about? How it works?
I'm just so curious that your explanation of, like, the liver and how it relates to your,
Anger and body,
and
muscles. Right.
is
Well,
just huge.
that's basic Chinese medicine.
Okay.
That's like meridian theory. So you have 12 main meridians, which relate to your 12 main organs.
Okay.
And there's a certain flow that the chi, the prana, goes through each organ every day. And the basic of acupuncture is to keep that flow going. And anytime there's an illness, it will create a disease. It will create like a gridlock. And the chi will go wonky. Stuff won't flow right. So the basic is just keeping that energy flowing for whatever reason it is. And that's what you try to rebalance the body
Gotcha.
through those meridians. But there's so many different ways you can practice acupuncture. You don't have to be very woo-woo. You can do like more orthopedic stuff. I'm more, I don't know if you would think about it, a little woo-woo about stuff.
Yeah, maybe. Considering this book you're reading.
I know.
Which has esoteric in the
It's
title.
so esoteric and weird.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
But I really think finding the root cause of what's the illness, the problem, and working with that channel and that organ is very, very, very effective.
Mm-hmm.
But it also takes the person who's coming in for the treatment to be open and want to address that issue in balance. Because a lot of people don't want to actually deal with the real problem.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. So you can't really...
That's our culture.
That's like what's
That's
up.
fine. Put some makeup on it.
Just put a cover up on it and it will be fine.
Yeah.
But so it's an interesting practice and working with chi. And then it's really important for me to have my own energy grounded and protected when I'm working with people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk a little bit about chakras.
Sure.
Yeah, let's round it out with chakras.
All right. So there's 7 main ones.
There's
more. There's like a million.
Yeah. So let's put this disclaimer out there. We're not experts
No,
in terms
if you couldn't tell.
Yeah, we're not experts in terms of,
Any of this stuff.
chakra stuff. I'm sure there's, people who've studied this their whole lives. But,
Yeah.
Again, part of this podcast is to introduce people or familiarize people or let people go a little bit deeper into this stuff so that they themselves can, seek out the information that they want if it piques their interest.
Yeah.
I've read that there's 7 chakras. I've also read that there are 5 chakras, but basically the similarity is it goes from like your like groin area,
Your sacral, your root one.
yeah, or the base of your spine,
Yep.
the perineum, and it goes all the way up to the top of your head.
Right.
And the idea is that you have certain
Energy locks.
Yeah, exactly. Certain centers of energy throughout your body.
Yeah. That have different kind of themes, right?
Yes.
So your sacral, your root, then you have your second chakra, which is your...
Second is sacral, I think. Isn't it?
Oh, so it's root, sacral,
Yeah.
solar plexus,
Yeah.
heart,
Yeah.
throat.
Throat. And then that's where things get a little
Right.
funky.
So it's either your
There's like a third eye one, some there's a
your-
crown one.
Yeah.
But I find in practical terms, what was really helpful to get clearer on chakra stuff was some work that Tosha did,
Okay.
where it's particularly talking about, and this is kind of all related to the body, what I was saying earlier, where there are times where, you could be experiencing a pain and it's like something that's coming from you, or it could be coming from someone else.
Example.
So basically the example that, and this is the one that, Tosha talks about, is there's a concept called courting.
Oh.
And basically, and we all do this, even if we don't realize it, is particularly in the lower 3 chakra centers, we have a tendency to actually almost project our energy out into other places and people and kind of we can hook people in. It's not something you do intentionally, but you will do it if you're not aware. Once you're aware, then you stop doing it. I mean, I will admit, I definitely courted people.
Yeah.
Looking back on, I'm like, oh yeah, of course I courted people. Particularly with your second chakra is all like creative and sexual. So it's like, yeah, like you're talking to a girl and it's like, I think for men, it's you're kind of focusing your energy in that area, and women can feel that. So I think sometimes women can feel that immediately and get really turned off because they're like, you're not fucking touching me,
Yeah.
You're not even like touching them physically, but they're like, why are you already touching me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas
like you talk with guys who like they're coming more from their heart center, and you're like, oh wow, like
He's so compassionate.
I'm relating to this person on an emotional level. So the thing with courting, which is incredibly powerful, and I highly recommend to go to Tosha's website and I have to do another plug.
I know. The guy.
I highly recommend going to Tosha's website, toshasilver.com, and I'm forgetting which. I think it's called like courting, Introduction to like courting, and she has a much deeper explanation about what chords are and how you get courted and how to release chords. But basically, when you start to understand chording and when you start to release chording, it's an incredibly powerful tool. Where you start to realize that, and the reason I did it was because I was trying to learn to get more in touch with my intuition, and you realize how much out there is filling you with ideas that aren't your own, or they're filling you with, fears or worries or anxieties that now it's like, if I read the newspaper or anything like that, I think this is kind of becoming a mainstream thing, or people are realizing it, is like there's so much stuff out there that's literally, it's like you're ingesting poison.
Like garbage.
Like garbage going into your body.
So I don't really know that much about courting just from what you've talked about,
Yeah.
a little bit. But is it sort of the same concept as like an energy vampire?
Psychic vampires.
Psychic vampire.
Same thing.
Okay. So that's when you, unbeknownst to yourself, allow someone to just suck in and tap in. Mm-hmm. Okay. That was my only question.
Yeah. It's like people, I really think that anyone really feels this. Just imagine, anyone who's listening right now, imagine someone who you hang out with them and it exhausts you.
Yeah. See, I just think about people who in my life have been like more energy sucking from me. And then when you put up the boundary, you cut that cord, right?
It's the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about this Sunday too, where it's like, and as soon as you do that,
they get so weird.
They get really weird.
Yeah.
Because they're like,
what?
Who are you? How do I relate
How could
to
you do this to me?
Yeah. Where do I get my energy from?
Yeah.
You're not allowing me to suck on your soul?
Whatever has happened.
Yeah. But I highly recommend check out Tosha's work on courting. it was particularly helpful for me with certain money issues. It's helpful for me in terms of just like overall like fear issues.
Wait, so were you being an energy vampire to someone else then? This is my other question.
Well, it goes both ways.
Okay.
And it's something that Tosha talks about, and I'll say here too, where it's like no one's doing this intentionally. I mean, maybe some people are, but a lot of times it's unintentional. We're
it's
not
like a
taught this.
subconscious reflex.
Yeah, it's that blurred line between the physical and kind of that first level that where
the etheric.
the ethereal, yeah,
bodysuit.
where it's like right where the energy starts to meet, where you don't know consciously, but you can kind of feel it. And like, I just know from personal experience when I learned this, I was like, oh, I've tried to court people, or I have courted people, and I realized it, and it's not something on both sides. It's not something to blame yourself about, and it's not something to blame someone else about.
Yeah.
Because it's just energy, and this is just how we are.
Yeah.
But the power is in the knowledge. Once you know this, then you stop doing it yourself, and you cut all the cords off that have been coming from other people. And anytime that someone tries to cord you, you know where to go. You know how to block it. It's the same as that, technique with Tosha talks about a technique where you close your second chakra. Your second chakra is a very open. It can be a very open field because there's a lot of it's right below your navel. Just think about the umbilical cord. It's like a very core part of the human body. And so a lot of, like I said, sexual, creative energy flows there. And, we didn't even really go through what each chakra stands for.
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
The first sacral, not the root chakra.
Yeah, root.
That's like your primal. Sacral, sexual, creative, solar plexus, emotional,
Power.
processing, right? The heart chakra, love center. The throat chakra is like your speaking.
Expression.
And then you have your third eye, which is like your pineal gland, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then your crown chakra, which connects you to your source.
Yeah.
And when all are lit up, it's a nice time.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we know anybody with all of them lit up.
Yeah.
Balanced. But yeah, and then they spin in different directions. They vibrate a different color. So people who work with energy and light work can see where you have the imbalances based on the color frequency. It's cool. I always have issues with my second and my third.
I think that's pretty common.
Yeah, especially my solar plexus. My solar plexus is a little stagnant little goo ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Well, now I start to feel it. Like I can literally feel I can feel my body tingle a little bit if
in the area of the chakra.
If something's challenging me in one of the chakra centers. And what really blew my mind was years ago when I was at Etsy. This had never happened to me before. There was a very stressful period at one point, and I broke out into hives, literally above where my second chakra was.
Huh.
I had never, ever broken out into hives before. And it was a very clear physical indication that my body was this is where your stress is going.
Well, it's like when people have a nervous stomach, or get GI distress with stress. That is your physical manifestation around where the chakras are too, of a discomfort or an imbalance, of how that emotion courses through your body and manifests itself in different ways. Yeah. Hives, thrown up, being nauseous, you know, like migraines, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important to like to meditate into your physicality and like send it oxygen and love.
I think that's how we should round this out.
Yeah.
But before we do,
Okay.
I know I had mentioned last episode, no,
2 episodes ago.
that I'm looking it up. Here it is. There was that technique about getting in touch with your inner child, where you write a letter, or you write free form, free flow, with your non-dominant hand. So righty for a lefty, lefty for a righty. And I want to plug the person who came up with that, or at least the person who told my friend who told me about it. Her name is Jessica Lyons. That's Lyons. And she's a life coach. I'm pretty sure she's based in New York.
Huh.
And thank you, Jessica. Yeah, it's an amazing,
It's a great technique.
amazing exercise. So maybe we'll just send you off with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oxygenate your cells. Send them some love.
Just take 5 minutes. I really like us not making people have to like take a lot of time.
No.
It's like
well, 'cause who has that?
Yeah, take 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
And just send yourself love.
Yeah.
Give yourself a hug.
Ugh. Delightful. What a delight. What a delightful way to end.
Yeah.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Love you guys.